So we'll sing this song. It's a very wonderful song by one of the greatest Pajavali poets in Bengali, Gaudiya Bengali literature. His name is Govinda Das. He's a disciple of Srinivasacharya. He's a younger brother of Ramachandra Kaviraj. You may remember Narottam Das Thakur sings in one song, Ramchandra Sangha, Magi Narottam Das, that he's praying for the association of Ramachandra Kaviraj. And Govinda Das, he's considered, as we noted on this paper, perhaps the greatest poet of Brajbuli literature. Very, very wonderful poet. So I'm going to start off with the second stanza, which is the chorus. Are pamara mana mara mera hala padalesha. Are pamara mana mara mera hala padalesha. Are pamara mana mara mera hala badalesha. Are pamara mana mara mera hala badalesha. Sankirtana prema badale shiva hiya dubala mohe viri vanchita kela. Sankirtana prema badale sabba hiya dubala mohe viri vanchita kela. Sankirtana prema badale sabba hiya dubala mohe vidi vanchita kela. Mohe vidi vanchita kela. Are pamara mana mara mera hala badalesha. Are pamara mana mara mera hala badalesha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Balaram Nityananda Parishada Sanghe Avatar. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Balaram Nityananda Parishada Sanghe Avatar. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Balaram Nityananda Parishada Sanghe Avatar. Balaram Nityananda Golokera prema dana sabade achina dila nalaino muni duracha. Sabade achina dila nalaino muni duracha. Golokera prema dan sabade achina dila nalaino muni duracha. Golokera prema dana Are pamara manamara mera hala badalesh. Are pamara manamara me. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Kopataru Chaya Pana Sabba Jiva Tapa Pada Sila Vaishnava Pad Kopataru Chaya Pana Sabba Jiva Tapa Pada Sila Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Kopataru Chaya Pana Sabba Jiva Tapa Pasarila Sabba Jiva Tapa Pasarila Muni Abhagiya Bina Vishaye Mati Arinu Hena Juge Nistarana Haila Muni Abhagiya Bina Vishaye Mati Arinu Muni Abhagiya Bina Vishaye Mati Arinu Hena Juge Nistarana Haila Are pamara manamara mera hala badalesh. Are pamara manamara mera hi. Agune pudiya maron jale paravesha karon bishakana marona papiya. Agune pudiya maron jale paravesha karon bishakana maron no papiya. E mata kore jade mara nana kore biri prana rahe kisuka lagiya. E mata kore jade mara nana kore biri prana rahe kisuka lagiya. Are pamara manamara mera hala badalesh. Are pamara manamara mera hala badalesh. Ehena goranga guna nakorinu shravana hoya hoya kori hahutasa. Ehena goranga guna nakorinu shravana hoy hoy kori hahutasa. Hoya hoya kori hahutasa. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Mukha Bodhi Nalaila Yoivamrita Govinda Das. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Mukha Bodhi Nalaila Jivamrita Govinda Das. Hare Pamara Manamara Mera Hala Badalesha Hare Pamara Manamara Mera Hala Badale Hare Pamara Manamara Mera Hala Badalesha Hare Pamara Manamarame Rahala Badalesha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, Gaura Haribo. Shri Guru Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Shri Shri Radha Gopi Vallabha Ju Ke Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Shrimati Subhadra Mai Sudarshan Ju Ke Shri Shri Gaur Nityananda Prabhu Ki Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So a few words about this song. Has a similar tone to the song we were singing a little earlier, Gauranga Karuna Koro. He's singing Are Pamara. Are means it's an exclamation. Are Pamara Mana, you crazy mind. Mara me rahala bhadalesha. You're so foolish. He says that the Sankirtana prema bhadale sabahiya dubala mohe vidi vanchita kela. That this chanting of the holy names has come, and the love of God is coming everywhere. It's a great monsoon, a great hurricane, a typhoon, a falling of love of God. And everyone's getting this, every heart is getting this wonderful thing, except for mine. And he says, Mohe vidi vanchita kela. Vanchita means cheated. I've been cheated from this thing. And who cheated me? I cheated myself. And he said, because of that, it's just like a spear in my chest, in my heart. And I'm suffering so much. And so in that kind of mood, he's calling out. As we were saying earlier, it's not just a formal religious prayer that someone's doing for their family. But as we spoke a few days ago, this is Atma Krandana, or the crying of the soul. This is not just from the lips, but this is very, very deep. This is an existential cry. So he's calling out in that mood, and what is he saying? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Balaram Nityananda Parishada Sanghe Avatara. Such a wonderful time. Shri Krishna himself has come as Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Balaram has come as Lord Nityananda. And they've come along, Parishada Sanghe, along with all of their associates. Golokera prema dana sabhare yachina dila nalaino mui duracha. They came and they're going. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in one place that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu means the Supreme Personality of Godhead coming on his hands and knees and begging for the people to worship him for their own benefit. They're coming and they're begging the residents of this age, please take this up. Everyone is suffering so badly. Take this up. Be happy. Srila Prabhupada, as we were noting a few days ago in a lecture in Hong Kong, once he said that we're not doing any business. He said, we don't want your money. We don't care. We don't care if you become a member. We just want that you become happy. And that's the purpose of this movement. He says, so everyone is getting this love of God, but because I'm a durachari, I'm a great rascal, I'm behaving very, very badly. I'm so foolish, I refused to take it. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Kopataru Chayapana Sabajiva Tapa Pasarila. He said that all the other living entities in this world, they're getting some relief from the tapa, from the fire of material existence, because they're taking shelter in the cooling shade of that Kopataru tree, not just an ordinary tree's shade, but the wish-fulfilling tree of Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas. They're so kind because the Vaishnavas and Gurudev, they're Krishna Kripa Srimurti. If Krishna's mercy manifests a form, that form is Sri Guru. Muni Abhagiya Vina, but he says that I'm Bodo Abhagiya. I'm very, very unfortunate. He says that I didn't want to take that nectar. I didn't want to take that relief. Rather, Bishai Matira Inu, Heno Juge Nishtara Nahoila. Rather, I drank poison. The poison of material existence. And I became mad. And he says, now, Hena Juge Nishchara no Haile. I don't know, am I going to be delivered at all? I missed this opportunity, such a great opportunity. Agune Pudiya Maron Jale Paravesha Karon Bishakana Marumo Papaya. He said, he has such a very, very intense mood. This is the madness of the saints. And we hear in every tradition saints of this kind of caliber. We hear in every tradition saints who are lamenting, and it seems like they're very, very depressed. In India, Teresa, Saint Teresa is a very, very famous saint, and she was feeding the poor and doing so many good things. And then after she passed away, someone found her diaries. And oh my God, everybody became very confused. Because in her diaries, she's lamenting so much. She's crying. I'm so foolish. I didn't do anything. I'm suffering. My Lord, why have you forgotten me? She's speaking like this. And it's very, very difficult for common people to understand those kind of emotions. He says, so because I haven't gotten this mercy, I want it so bad. I'll throw myself in the fire. I'll drown myself in the ocean. He said, I'm such a sinner. I'm such a offender. I'll drink poison. Bishakana, marumopapia. I'll drink poison and I'll die. E mata kori jari maranana kore bidi prana rahe kisuka lagia. He said, if in spite of all of this, I don't die, I want to die, but I can't die. Our acharyas have described that the Vaishnavas, the saintly persons, they die to live and live to die. And we were speaking something about this on the basis of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It says Vishad Yoga, or the yoga of lamentation, the yoga of Bishada, the yoga of accepting poison, accepting my situation. And that yoga means that we die to live and we live to die. The Vaishnavas, they don't want to live in this world. There's different types of lamentation. One type of lamentation is when we feel sorry for ourselves, some self-pity, and we drown ourselves in that self-pity. And the ironic thing is we don't know who the self is. We're lamenting for something we don't understand. We're just so depressed we can't tolerate existence anymore, and we just want to finish all of it. Someone who's a more high-class person will have the same kind of feelings. The same basic kind of feelings. I don't want to live here. I don't want to be in this world. I want to die. But they don't take their life. Rather, they live to die. And they die to live. They finish the material world. And this is Bhagavad Gita. Vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. Krishna began to speak the Bhagavad Gita in response to Arjuna's lamentation of this caliber. Ehino goranga guna na korinu shravana hoya hoya korinahu tasa. He says that I never listened. I was never interested in understanding any of these things about Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It just seemed like some unimportant thing. I have more important things to do. I have to make money. There's so many things going on in the world. I'm reading the news, the politics, a very dangerous situation. And there's my family. I have to get my daughter married. I have to get some education for my children. I have to make money. These are important things. We think like that. And having that attitude then, oh, this spiritual things, this is not so important for me. We can't focus on that. It's not that we have to give up all those things. The very wise statesman, Chanakya Pandit, he once said that we should act as though we're never going to die when we're pursuing money and education. Because if you think you're going to die, maybe I might die today, who knows? I might go out in the street, get hit by a car, get struck by lightning, and may have a heart attack, who knows? So why should I pursue education? Why should I try to make money? So if you have that attitude, you won't be inspired to do those things. But those things are necessary in this world. So we should act like I'm never going to die. And simultaneously, we should act as though death has got a hold of me by the hair. I only have a little bit of hair. That death has grabbed me in that way. And things, so very, very intense. We have to learn the art, as we sometimes say, of living alone in the world. Living alone in the crowd. Not being part of this world. Externally looking like we're part of it, but not really being part of it. So he said, I never listened to these things. Hoi, hoi, kori, ha, hutasa. Alas, alas, hoi, hoi, I'm burning in fire. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Mukhe Bore Nala Ilama Jivan Mrita Govinda Das. He said, I never tried to chant these names of Krishna. This is our movement. It's a very simple movement. Prabhupada said, we don't care. We're not here to get your money. We're not here just to make members, do real estate, build things. Our purpose is simply, we'd like everyone to chant these names. Chant the names of God. Chant this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It's such a very powerful thing. And if you don't like chanting Hare Krishna, you can chant whatever other names of God you like, Jehovah, Allah, whatever. But if all of the world, if everyone were to start chanting the names of God, can you imagine what a world it would be? And he says, but I'm not chanting. I'm not doing this thing. Jiva Mrita. He said, I'm like a walking dead body. I'm a walking corpse. What is the value of my life? So, in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna expresses his lamentation. He expresses his honesty. And this is the principal quality of real spiritual life. It's a difference then from formal religion. In formal religion, you say some prayer or something, or you give some money, you tithe, and then you're a member and you'll get liberation. They tell you you'll go back to God just because of that. But from Bhagavad Gita, in the very beginning, we understand that that's not enough. There's something required from the heart. And this is this Vishad Yoga, this yoga of lamentation. We connect with the Lord by being honest. If we're not honest with our situation, how can we cry out from the Lord? What is the meaning of our chanting? What is the meaning of our prayers? It has no meaning. It's just some external thing. So hearing Arjuna's lamentation, his honesty, to the point where Arjuna said, forget it, I want to die. As we mentioned earlier, death by cop. I'm going to put all my weapons down and let them kill me. I want to die. I want to commit suicide. He's having an existential crisis. He can't understand who he is, why he's here. And then, when he's so honest with Krishna, then Vishidantam idamvat, Vishidantam, this Bishad Yoga, Vishidantam idam vacham, hearing that, then Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita. And he begins telling Arjuna, don't lament. Why are you lamenting for all these things? And Arjuna says, no, I can't fight against my relatives. We were speaking earlier, because this is my own conception of myself. My concept of myself, my self-identity, is based on the existence of all these people. We mentioned that spirit soul identifies with the body, first thinking I'm hungry. That's who I am. I'm hungry. Then I'm a little girl. I'm the daughter of such and such person. I'm a student. I'm a girlfriend. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. And if the baby of the child of that mother dies, she has a crisis. She loses part of her identity. Because then her identity as a mother, where's the identity for that? It's based on the existence of that other body, of that child. So Arjuna finally comes to his senses, and he prays to Krishna. Karpanya dosot pahata svabhava prichami tvam dharma samuda chetaha yatsheyashanishchitam bruhi tanme sishyaste hamsadi mam tvam prapanam. He said, now I understand my situation. I'm confused about my duty. I don't know what I should do, what I should not do. I've lost all my composure. I can't keep it together because of weakness. So in this condition, in this kind of situation, I'm asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple. I'm a soul surrendered unto you. You please instruct me. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, our great acharya, great teacher in our line, he's commented on this, that there's a conversation that previously Arjuna, he's telling Krishna so many things. One thing he says, Krishna, you want me to fight, but it's not good to fight. You should be peaceful, right? Don't fight with people. And he's quoting Shastra and saying this and this. And now finally he's surrendered to Krishna. So when he speaks this, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna smiles. And he says, oh, Arjuna, just a few minutes ago you were telling me so much Shastra. You were preaching to me. And he said, although you're supposed to be a person, you're a Kshatriya, you're supposed to be protecting innocent people. And now you're deciding you're going to become a sadhu and a beggar. So why should I say anything? You're preaching to me. Sometimes this happens between guru and disciple. The disciple, Maharaj, it'd be better if you said like this. You should do like this. Don't lament. And sometimes the disciple starts instructing the guru. In such a case, how will the disciple get anything from guru? If you go to the university class and you start instructing the teacher, no, you shouldn't speak like, you should do it like this. How will you learn anything? So in response to Krishna's words, Arjuna spoke this thing. He said, no. Karpanya dosot pataha svabhava. My intelligence is bewildered. I don't understand who I am. Because after all, dharmasya sukshma gati. Dharma is a very, very subtle thing. It's very difficult to understand. So you should tell me. You should decide and you should tell me. But then Krishna replies to him, he says, but Arjuna, you're so learned. You're responding to me, you're instructing me so many things. So how can I speak? And Arjuna says, nay. Tatraha sishyasteham asmi. I'm now your student. And I'm not going to speak anything more to you. Sometimes we see also that the teacher may be present. We may wonder why it is that I'm crying out to the Lord, but nothing's happening. Why I'm not getting any result. Well, in the same way, during class, when you have a test, the teacher doesn't say anything, does he? He's quiet. And you have to do that test. So, in a similar way, when we have tests in life, Krishna, the Lord, he may be quiet just to watch. What are they going to do? So then, Krishna says again, he responds to Arjuna, he said, look, Arjuna, how can I teach you? You're my friend. And Arjuna said, no. Now I'm your student. And you please teach me. I need to hear from you. So this is a situation of a sincere soul in this world. This is spoken about in a beautiful way by Jagadananda Pandit in his Prema Vivarta. We lost our Mridanga player. All right. And he speaks there about the sojourn of the soul. And he says that the soul in this world, forgetting its position, it becomes a slave of illusion. And it goes from one body to the next body. I'll sing a verse or two and you can chant Hare Krishna in response. Kabu Raja, Kabu Praja, Kabu Viprasudra, Kabu Duki, Kabu Suki, Kabu Kita Kshudra. Bolo. Hare Krishna. The living entity who's not this body goes through so many different births. Kibaraja, Kaburaja, sometimes becomes the king and life's good. And Kabu Praja, sometimes you're a citizen, life's not so good. It's all right. Kabu Vipra, Kabu Sudra, sometimes you're a Brahman, a teacher, sometimes you're a Sudra, doing hard work. Kabu duki, sometimes you're unhappy. Kabu suki, sometimes happy. Kabu kita, shudra. Sometimes you become an insect, a worm and stool. Kabu swage, kabu marche, nara keva kabu. Kabu deva, kabu daicha, kabu dasa prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sometimes that living entity, kabu swarge, he goes to the higher planets, to what we would call heaven. And life is very good. And kabu marche, sometimes he has to come down here to earth, not a cave, a kabu. And sometimes he goes to hell. Hell is also present in this world. In so many ways, people are suffering so badly. Kabu deva, sometimes they become a great, powerful devata, like a god. Kabu daicha, sometimes they become a demon. Kabu dasa, prabhu, sometimes they're a servant, and sometimes they're a master. Eirupe sangsara brahmite kona jana sadhu sange nija tattva avagata hana. Hare Krishna. Eirupe sangsara brahmite kona jana. It's kind of like one of those old Twilight Zone shows, where you're watching television for the rest of your life. You're watching a movie, and the movie never ends. It's just going on and on and on. And you never really live your own life. You're just watching someone else's movie. So it's like, E rupi sangsar brahmite kona jana. From that situation, if someone's very, very fortunate, brahmite kona jana, they'll meet a saintly person. The world needs saintly persons. The world needs people who are not attached just to making money and not attached to sectarianism, nationalism, but people who appreciate spiritual life, people who want something divine. And if we come in contact with such a person, sadhu sangha nija tattva avagatahana, then that saintly person says, hey, you're suffering for no reason. You're not actually this body. That's not you. You're a spiritual entity. Nija tattva jani a sangsara nachai kena vaba jinu maya kore hoi hoi. Hare Krishna. Nija tattva jani. When someone gets this knowledge, and they understand, I'm not this body. And I've taken birth so many times in this world. How many times have I been someone's son, someone's daughter? How many times have I been married? How many times have I had children? How many times have I taken birth in different forms of life? So many times. And so, in that situation, ara sangsaranachai, then he becomes detached. I don't want this material existence. I remember myself, when I was growing up, coming out of high school, I thought, what is the purpose of life? I don't want to just get some education in the university, and then get a job, get a car, get a wife, have a house, and that's life. There must be something more to it than that. And so such a personality then, he begins to lament, hoi hoi, kena vabhajinu maya, why have I served this illusion for so long? Kende bole oh hey Krishna ami tavadas, tomara charana chari hoila sarvanas. Hare Krishna. At that time, he having this existential crisis, trying to understand who they are, then his spiritual life begins. This is Atma Krandana. And he begins to cry out from the heart, oh my dear Lord, I'm your eternal servant, but I haven't served you. And now I've wasted everything in my life. What is the value? In the Adi Purana, Krishna tells Arjuna, Gatvacha mama namani, Rudanti mama sanido tesham, aham parikrito nanya krito janardana. He says, you know, Arjuna, it's a funny thing. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. He said, you know I'm God. He said, everybody claims that I belong to them. The Christians say that I belong in their church, and you can't find me anywhere else. And the Muslims say, no, no, no. He's here in our place, our mosque. And the Jews say, no, no, he's in our synagogue. And the Hindus say, no, no, he's in our temple. And maybe some of the Hare Krishnas say, no, no, he's only here with us. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that. He said, but actually, I don't belong to any of those people. I don't belong to the Christians or the Hindus or the Muslims or the Jews or even the Hare Krishnas. Who do I belong to? Gatvacha mamanamani udanta mani samido. I belong to those persons who call out my name and who cry for me from their heart. And this was the purpose of Srila Prabhupada's movement. This is why Srila Prabhupada came here, not to establish a new religion, not to establish more sectarianism and more dogma, but to teach people the simple art of crying from the heart, Atmakrandana, the crying of the soul. And this is what's required in this world today. So when such a personality understands their position, then they can begin to cry. And they feel their whole life has been wasted. What am I doing? And at that time, Kripa Kori Krishna Tare Chadana Samsar Kakuti Koriya Krishna Dake Ekbar Hare Krishna Hare Krishna. And Krishna is so merciful that if anyone cries out to him like that, anyone calls out from the heart in that kind of mood, then he frees that person from material existence. And this is the desire of this movement. We're not interested, again, just in establishing buildings or other things. Jiva Goswami gives a very interesting discussion about the situation of the soul in his Paramatma Sandarbha. It's a very deep subject matter. People write a lot about this in different religions. There's a book we heard about, why do bad things happen to good people? Right? It's a very common question. It was a child. He was an innocent child. He was 4 years old and he was run over by a truck and killed. How can you say there's such a thing as God? If such a thing would happen to a small child. Or even sometimes as devotees, they say, this isn't supposed to happen to me. I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I have an inside connection. Right? I'm not supposed to suffer. Things are supposed to be going good for me. That's why I'm here. Right? So Jiva Goswami speaks about this in Paramatma Sandarbha. And he says that people, they endeavor for happiness in two ways. Paranandane pravritta dvida jayate. Parato nija bishta sampatyai kvachit tad abishta matra sampatyai cha. One person endeavors for his own personal happiness, and there's another higher class person who endeavors to make other people happy. So then what is the purpose of suffering? The Bhagavatam, 10th canto, describes, Yata kantaka vidango, janto nechati tam vyatam, jiva samyam gato lingara natata vidakantaka. How can we understand pain unless we go through it ourselves? You may have heard what it feels like to be stuck with a pin, but just reading about it in a book, hearing some description about it, you can't really understand it. I've heard that there's great intense pain in giving birth, but even a woman can't understand that unless she goes through that thing herself. But having gone through such a pain, then they understand what other people are going through. And Jiva Goswami, he says that one can only understand suffering when suffering touches the heart. And then at that time, you can understand the situation of other people. And then he says a very interesting thing for devotees, for transcendentalists. I'll read the Sanskrit, it's interesting. Yatu bhaktanam sukham tatasya bhakti rupam eva. He says that chanting, praying, coming before the Lord, these are the things, these activities of devotion, these are the things which bring happiness to our heart. Tatate sham dukkam cha bhagavat prapt antarayanaiva bhavati. And when we can't come in contact with those things, when we can't go to the temple, I slipped on the ice and I broke my hip, and now I'm stuck in the hospital, and Maharaj is at the temple, and there's wonderful kathas going on, and so many things, and I can't go. And okay, I can listen on the internet, but it's not the same as being there in person. And we lament. We feel very, very sad. But tatcha bhagavat eva chitchadrata jayate sacha bhaktir evati. If in spite of that situation, the devotee doesn't stop, he takes the attitude that I don't care, I'm never going to give up my worship of the Lord, in spite of so many different sufferings, in spite of so many different pains. And this we see in the life of Francis of Assisi. We see in the life of so many great devotees in all different traditions. They're put to trials and tests. Even Christ, we see in the Bible, he also went through so many difficulties up to the point when he was crucified. But in spite of all those difficulties, if a devotee takes the attitude as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that tatenu kampam susamikshamano bunjana evatmrikitam vipakam higvag vapubir vidadan namaste jiveta yomukti pade sadayabak. If he has the attitude that I'm not going to blame anyone else. Because in this world, everything going on, it's a big blame game. It's not my fault. It's Trump's fault, right? Or it's the CIA or the FBI or the KGB or the GBC or the this thing or that thing. But it's definitely not my fault. It's everybody else. It's someone else's fault. Someone else stopped me. It's because of my wife. She's always talking. She never stops talking. That's why I'm not doing my bhajan. That's why I'm not surrendered. We're always blaming someone else. That's the blame game. And my suffering, it's clearly not my fault. It's this rascal over here. And everybody should know, this rascal did this thing to me. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as we were describing yesterday, in the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, in one commentary, he says that the nature of a very high-class saintly person, he doesn't see anything bad in anyone. And even if someone, he says, is suffering in a very cold winter, like here in Boston, they have no place to stay, they're on the street, and all they have is one blanket. If someone comes and steals that blanket, what does he think? Does he think that rascal, that jerk? He thinks, actually, he's a saintly person. He had a knife. I saw that. He could have hurt me, but he didn't. He just took the blanket. He must have needed it also. He's a saintly person. That's not an easy thing to say. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a very elevated attitude. But this is the attitude for a serious practitioner of spiritual life, that I don't blame everyone else, that I look inward, not outward. I look inside and see what lessons the Lord wants to teach me from this. And even though I'm suffering because He's not appearing before me, just like Teresa we were mentioning, she was crying in her diary, my Lord, have you rejected me? Why aren't you appearing before me? And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he speaks the same thing. He says, Adarshana mamahatam karotu va. Maybe you don't appear before me, but ma prananatastu sa eva napraha. Whether you appear before me or don't appear before me, you're my only Lord. You're my everything. And when the devotee has that attitude, and Krishna sees that the devotee is suffering, Jiva Goswami says, Tatra Bhagavat Chittadrata Jayate. Chittadrata means Krishna's heart melts. When he sees this devotee, he's suffering so much, he's worshiping me, and in spite of all the difficulties that he's going through, all the difficult tests and hard things, he's not giving up. He's not stopping his worship. Krishna's heart melts. chitrajata jayate sacha bhaktir evati. And when Krishna's heart melts, what happens? When Krishna's heart melts, that becomes bhakti. That becomes our devotion. By surrendering to the Lord, by depending upon Him. So, this is Atma Krandana. This is a kind of lamentation, but this is Vishad Yoga, where we're connecting with the Lord by being honest. And there's three basic types of lamentation. There's mundane lamentation, which, as we were mentioning, is that kind of lamentation where we feel sorry for ourselves. And generally we feel angry. I've been cheated. They did me wrong. They charged me too much on my taxes. Or I came to the Hare Krishna temple and something bad happened to me. I wasn't expecting that. And they blame the movement for that. They blame Krishna for that. That's mundane kind of lamentation. And that's very detrimental. Better than that is when someone has some inward-looking nature. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's Bahirmukh Janas, external persons, and Antarmukh Janas, internal persons. Someone who's looking inward to see the faults in themselves and who's ready to accept that poison, that very, very difficult, unpalatable truth that probably I hurt someone. If not in this life, in some other previous life, I've hurt people, I've done wrong things, I've done bad things, and I deserve this. So let me suffer like this. But not just that I want to become a masochist. I remember one song we used to sing, the greatest of the sadists and the masochists too, screaming, please hit me and I'll hit you. It's not that we're wanting, please hit me, I like this, I like pain. That's not the mood of a devotee. But a devotee's mood, when he's suffering, he cries out. He uses that as a connection with the Lord. This is Vishad Yoga. This is lamentation, which is beneficial. But there's also another type of lamentation beyond that, which is divine lamentation. The lamentation of the saints, and even the lamentation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His eternal associates. And this is a very esoteric, very, very deep, very private subject matter. But it's intimated in the Bhagavad Gita. Why is it, you may inquire, for those of you who know something more about our philosophy, our tradition, the tradition of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is Braj Bhakti. We want Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Understanding that, why is there so much stress on Bhagavad Gita? When Bhagavad Gita is just a lot of philosophy, and even we've seen some Vaishnavas, they say, Bhagavad Gita, that's an introductory subject matter. We don't like to read that. But how can we accept that? Our acharyas have said Bhagavad Gita is very, very important. Bhagavad Gita is spoken personally by Krishna himself. My Guru Maharaj, he spoke something about this subject, and he said that in the last part of the Gita, in the 18th chapter, Krishna speaks a verse which in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya tradition, they call the Charama Shlok, our most important verse in Bhagavad Gita. Probably a lot of you know this verse. Sarva dharman parityagya mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksayashyami masucha. And my Guru Maharaj commented on this. He said that this word braja is very significant. And this word braj means to leave, saranam braja. He said, but our acharyas say the word braj here also means braj prem. And this is the last words in the Gita. When Krishna said this, then everything's finished. He can't continue speaking the Bhagavad Gita anymore because now he's remembering Vrindavan. And Krishna was thinking to himself, my Guru Maharaj said that he's saying this, but it's only theoretical. And so he wound up this lila, he finished it, and he went back to Goloka Vrindavan, and he thought to himself that I said everything. I gave confidential, more confidential, most confidential instructions to Arjuna, but how many people understood it? And then Krishna was thinking to himself, I said all these things theoretically. I've not demonstrated it practically, how to surrender, so I have to go again. And therefore he came again in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada writes in a purport, in the 9th canto, chapter 4, text 63, He says, following the instructions of a devotee is more valuable than following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. That's a very amazing statement, isn't it? Let me read that again. Huh? Following the instructions of a devotee is more valuable than following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. So important are the devotees. Now, this we can understand at least in two ways, for two reasons. One of which is that Krishna's Bhakta Bhaktiman. He says, Aham Bhakta Paradino, Yasvatanti Vadvija. I have no independence. I'm dependent on my devotees. That's the nature of Krishna. So whatever the devotee says, Krishna has to follow that. If the devotee says, give him mercy, Krishna doesn't say, but he doesn't deserve it. I see he doesn't have any qualification. If the devotee says, give him mercy, then Krishna will accept. So in that sense, following instructions of a devotee is more valuable than following instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. Another meaning is there that the devotee is directly living those instructions. And by living those instructions, that in seeing someone living it, that gives us some strength, not just theoretical speaking. We don't need theoretical speakers. We don't need religionists. But what we need is people who are actually behaving on it. So Krishna in the Gita, he said, Mamana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. He said, you should always think of me. Be my devotee. Worship me. Offer obeisances to me. He said, Sarva dharmam parityagya. But where was the example of that? Now, when Krishna spoke this in Bhagavad Gita, and when he spoke this Bhagavad Gita at Kurukshetra, what do you suppose he was thinking there? If you have some very intense thing happen in a place, maybe a baby's born in your house. For the rest of your life, whenever you go to the room where that baby was born, you may always remember, this is where, that night, we couldn't take her to the hospital in time. The baby just came out so quickly. Or maybe, Hare Krishna, someone died in that room. Or maybe you met your beloved who you haven't seen in 20 or 30 years, a long time. You will always remember that place. So Kurukshetra is a very important place. And Kurukshetra is a place where Krishna met with the gopis of Vrindavan. He met the Brijbasis after long, many years of separation. It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that meeting, and our acharyas have commented on it, that Krishna was there along with his relatives in the Yadu dynasty who had come from Dwarka, so many great kings and people. And they'd all gone there to do some pious acts because it was a lunar eclipse, and that's considered to be an auspicious occasion to take a sacred bath and to give some charity. And so all those kings and pious people, they were going there with chariots full of gold and jewels, and there were war elephants and armies, and it was like an earthquake. The earth was shaking for hundreds of miles around. And if you looked in that direction, you'd be blinded by the sun, the rays of the sun glaring off of the gold and jewels and the silver and gold armor that they were wearing, so much opulence. But at the same time, those armies were going to Kurukshetra. There was another group of people also going. And they didn't have golden jewels or big chariots. They had some wooden carts. And they had some bulls that they were putting in front of them. And there was no golden jewels in the back of their carts. They were carrying gobar, cow dung, and pots of yogurt and milk. And those were the residents of Vrindavan. And our acharyas had described that those great kings, they were going there because they wanted some punya labha. They wanted to get some pious benefit. The members of the Yadu dynasty were going there because they wanted to do some service to Krishna. But the Brijbasis, the residents of Vrindavan, were going there simply because they just wanted to see Krishna. And because they couldn't live without seeing Krishna. And they knew that Krishna couldn't live without seeing them. So they went there. And there was this meeting, very intense meeting, between these two very different groups of people. The very formal devotees of Dwarka and the very intimate devotees of Vrindavan. Krishna has his mother, Devaki. And generally people think that she's really Krishna's mother. And so when Devaki met Yashoda, she was being very nice to Yashoda. When she met Yashoda, who's coming from Vrindavan, Devaki's coming from this opulent situation, and she spoke to her in a way that a woman may do. We call this double talk, or what is it called? Parokshavad, thank you. Parokshavad means you say one thing, but you mean another thing, right? We were talking with Beam about this the other night, right? It's your 25th wedding anniversary. You come home, your wife's been cooking for 2 days. She wants something romantic, very special. And you come home and you say, sweetheart, you know, some of the boys, they invited me to go to a movie tonight. Do you mind? Is it okay if I go with them? I know you prepared everything, but it's really important. And your wife looks at you. She says, fine. Go right ahead. That's a very difficult thing because the man, he hears, she said, fine, go right ahead. But she doesn't mean fine, go right ahead, right? What she's really saying is you're a jerk. And if you leave and you go with them, when you come back here, I'm not going to be here because I'm going to go to my father's house. I'm sick of this. That's what it really means. That's Parokshavad. So Devaki, she spoke to Yashoda in that way, and she said, oh, Didi. Didi, a respectful kind of address ladies have amongst each other. Oh, Didi, I just want to thank you for taking such good care of Krishna, even though he wasn't your son. You took such good care of him, and I just want you to know I really appreciate that. And she was speaking in a kind of way ladies are expert with, to kind of poke her a little bit. But Devaki was defeated by Yashoda. How was she defeated? Yashoda didn't even hear what Devaki said, because Yashoda was just looking at the face of Krishna and crying in ecstasy. My Gopal, my Gopal. So much intense love. And what to speak of the gopis. The gopis, when they were coming to Kurukshetra to meet with Krishna, sometimes they were running, sometimes they would fall to the ground unconscious, other times they would become like a statue and just stand there in ecstasy. And those gopis of Vrindavan, they had such very, very intense love for Krishna. They'd stop taking bath, they'd stop decorating themselves, they're wearing old rotten cloth. And when Krishna saw them in Kurukshetra, and he saw their situation, it pierced his heart. And Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He said, Mamana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskar. You should be my devotee. But what was he thinking perhaps? In the 10th canto, Krishna speaks to Uddhava and he tells Uddhava about the gopis. Tan man manaska mat prana madarte chakta daihika. He said almost the same thing. That the minds of these gopis, they're mamana bhava mad bhakto. They're always thinking of me. They're always offering their obeisances to me. Those gopis, they're the epitome of sarvadharman parityagya. And so, when Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, this Bhagavad Gita, this message of the Gita is imbued with these kind of feelings. And the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they see this in it, and they see these feelings of separation. The feelings, just like sometimes we speak about Rath Yatra to non-devotee audiences, and we're trying to express what is the meaning of Rath Yatra. We tell them generally 2 sentences. That the meaning of this festival is rescuing God from mechanical, organized religion and bringing Him to the village of our heart. This is Rath Yatra. And Rath Yatra is a celebration. We're celebrating that when the devotee cries for God, God cries for the devotee. This is Vishad Yoga. This is a connection with the Lord. When the devotee begins to cry, then the Lord also cries. And Krishna, when he left Vrindavan, all the residents of Vrindavan, they cried and they cried. And to reciprocate with them, he also began to cry. It's said in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Premi Bhakta Biyoge Chahideha Charite Premi Krishna Mile Seha Napade Marite Bolo Hare Krishna Premi Bhakti Viyoge Chahideha Charite. Sometimes such an exalted devotee, feeling separation from the Lord, they want to die. Their feelings, their spiritual feelings become so intense, they want to die. But by that ecstasy of love, one gets the darshan of Krishna. Preme Krishna mile. Then, in that situation, one sees Krishna. Then sehana parimarite. Then they can't die when they see the Lord. So the Vaishnavas, they die to live and live to die. And there's three types of this vishad. There's mundane lamentation, where we feel sorry for ourselves and we're angry with everybody else in the world. There's something higher, this atmakrandana, when we begin to cry from the heart, understanding our situation. And then there's divine ecstasy in separation, which may look like something mundane, but it's very, very, very high and very, very wonderful. And therefore, Dharma Chaitri, Kuru Chaitri, Samaveda Yutsava. This Bhagavad Gita begins by invoking Kurukshetra and the feelings of Kurukshetra that must have taken place there. And those feelings, that experience that Krishna had, we say in Sanskrit it's a samskar, or we may say in English as a translation, wow, that's really samskar. A samskar means an impression. It means a scar, something that's been burned in my heart, burned in my body, and when I've gone through this thing. So when Krishna went through that, seeing the intensity of the love of separation of his devotees, that evoked the Bhagavad Gita. He could feel this. He could remember this situation of Kurukshetra there in the Gita when he spoke to Arjuna. And he spoke the Gita to Arjuna when Arjuna himself began this Vishad Yoga. So this is our purpose of our movement, is to teach people. Prabhupada says in one purport, he says that one should learn the simple art of crying for Krishna. And in his explanation of the Hare Krishna mantra, one of the first messages that Srila Prabhupada gave to the world, he said that this chanting of Hare Krishna is just like the crying of a child for the mother. And that's the purpose of this movement. We should clearly understand that. We want people to understand that they should cry not for material life, not for all their problems and things, but we should learn the art of crying for the Lord. And that's the greatest ecstasy. So we'll stop there. Grantarashmi Bhagavad Gita ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So it's a little early. I'd like to first ask, it's okay? You have something?
No, we have passed the book that we can sign for the.
Okay, I'll mention something about it then. So we wanted to give some gift to everybody here. We were mentioning the other day. So we have a free email magazine. It's really a nifty thing. There is such a thing as a free lunch. I don't know if you can get a free lunch, but at least you can get a free email magazine, Krishna Katamrita Bindu. And we've done about 400 issues so far. We have about 10,000 readers. And all that it is Krishna Katha, fresh translations and stories and things you haven't heard before. So if you sign up on this paper that's being passed around, you can get a free email subscription. It comes every Ekadasi in PDF format. So at this point, I'd like to just invite the devotees here, if somebody would like to express some reflection. We'd like to hear if you had something you appreciated, something you valued from the talks, or something you're connecting with something else. And after reflections, then maybe there may be some questions. Any reflections from anybody? Anybody like something? Prabhuji, can you say that?
It made me think of something that Gaur Govinda Swami said one time, where he said he was opening a crying school to teach people how to cry.
Yeah, our Guru Maharaj, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he said like that I opened up crying school. Once he was in Africa, and someone asked him, Maharaj, you're always saying that we should cry for God. But that sounds pretty theoretical. How can we cry? And he gave such a nice answer. He said, it's just like if you go to a funeral, somebody died. You're just walking down the street, and you saw, and somehow out of curiosity, you walk into the funeral parlor, and everybody there's crying. And you start crying also, because their mood, you catch that mood, it overwhelms you. So he said, in the same way, when we associate with people who are crying for the Lord, we may also cry. But if we associate with people who are just crying because they want some position, because they want money, because they want something material, then we'll cry for the wrong thing. Well, thank you. Any other reflections, thoughts from Prabhuji?
I appreciate the connection between the gopis coming to Kurukshetra and the connection with Bhagavad Gita.
Uh-huh.
I've never heard that.
That's something my Guru Maharaj spoke something about. Thank you. Anything else, Prabhuji? Uh-huh. So he's saying that he's reminded of this verse in Shikshastakam, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, that my dear Lord, I've been drowning in this ocean of material existence. Please place me as a grain of an atom of dust at your lotus feet. This is crying of the soul. Prabhuji?
Spiritual life starts only after doing Atma Krantam. Before that, the spiritual life doesn't really start.
He likes this point that spiritual life begins after Atma Krandan, after we begin to cry for the Lord, not before that. Thank you. I'm really happy. You marked that. Prabhuji?
I had a similar experience where I was brought up for the first few years of my life by sort of like my mom's, not my relative, but more like a family friend. And for a few years when my mom was out of the country, back in India. So I met her decades later, 20 years later, and she was exactly doing the same. She just started crying.
Uh-huh. And we can understand something about that. Prabhuji?
Whatever problems and difficulties I'm having in my life, never blame anybody else for those things. It's just my past karmas or maybe this life karmas that I'm meeting the fruits of.
So could everybody hear what he said? He appreciated this point that we were making. He said that whatever bad things happen, whatever difficult things happened, I shouldn't complain. I should just think that it's my fault that I did something in a past life. Now, I have to comment further on that. That's really easy to say. But it's not very easy to act on. But we should consider it to be a work in progress. It's natural we become annoyed. This rascal, he stole my hubcaps off my car. So they did this thing and they did that thing. We're blaming someone else. But we should catch ourselves. We should constantly be contemplating on this thing. And if we slip a little bit and we start blaming someone else, we start becoming angry with someone else, and we should think, no, I shouldn't be that way. Bhima.
Bhagavad Gita verse I don't have, obviously. One who patiently awaits on me, serves me, meanwhile accepting the pleasures and the pains that come on their neck. To him I am very dear, and he is very dear to me. What is that verse?
Taptenum kampam susamikshemano. It's a Bhagavatam verse. Bunjana evatmakritam vipakam. And he says, Hrig vag vapuvir vididan namaste javeta yomukti pade sadayabak. That if someone, in spite of those difficult situations, they go on worshiping the Lord. They don't care. And they worship the Lord with their heart, with their body, with their mind and words. They give everything to the Lord. That person is a liberated person.
When they accept the
Yes, and they accept whatever. At the same time, exactly. That's what the verse is saying. Yeah. Very nice. Prabhuji?
I think that was really wonderful. In fact, I've appreciated your talks, all throughout the week. It occurred to me earlier this week how wonderful it is when we're serving Krishna, that in a small way we're sort of living in, with Krishna in that very moment. And if you devote yourself the right way, it can kind of seem like you're already in the spiritual world. And
Wonderful.
Being here is just like a small, like waiting in the registry line.
I have to say for myself, I'll just be a little bit honest. There's a reason I have some motivation personally for what I'm doing. I like very, very much going and associating with the devotees and doing this thing. Krishna, he says in the Padma Purana, Naham tistami vaikunte yoginam hridayeshuva tatatistami naradiyata gayanti madbhakta. He said that I don't, he said you should know, Narad, I don't actually live in Vaikuntha. And I'm not actually in the hearts of the yogis. But I stay in that place where the devotees are speaking Krishna Katha. And this is, for me, what I like, the very, very exciting, wonderful thing about Vaishnava Sangha. It's said in Skanda Purana. Krishna speaks about Vaishnava Sangha and what happens when we have Krishna Katha. Srimad Bhagavatam Shastram Yatra Bhagavatar Yada Kirtyate Shrugate Chapi Sri Krishna's Tatra Nishchitam. When you have Krishna Katha in a loving relationship with the devotees, when they don't sit all the way in the back of the room, but they're coming close, and you're having some reciprocation. He said, whenever and wherever the devotees are coming together and having some Krishna Katha, then you should know Krishna's personally coming. And how does he come? Does he come with anyone? Srimad Bhagavatam Yatra Shlokam Shlokardam Eva Chatatrapi Bhagavan Krishna Balavi Bir Virajate. Wherever, and even in one verse, someone just says one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, or even Shlokardam, even half a verse, then Tatrapi Bhagavan Krishna, Krishna appears, and not alone, Balavi Bir Virajate. Krishna appears there with the gopis. This is our purpose of our movement. Srila Prabhupada, he said sometimes that the purpose of our movement is to provide a place where people can come and hear together about the topics of the Lord. Such a wonderful atmosphere. And if it's done in the right way, I remember when I was growing up in the early 60s, things, and at that time there was a phrase they had, it was a be-in. And a be-in is kind of a very, very amazing, it's kind of a hard thing to explain. It's a happening. And everybody all came together and they did whatever kind of, so the Srimad Bhagavatam class, Krishna Katha, is a happening. Something really, really happens. Krishna appears. But in that place where there's a loving atmosphere amongst the devotees. So I want to thank everybody here for being so kind to us and coming and giving us your ear. And we're not really doing anything. All that we're doing is just what we're supposed to. Just repeating some things from our Guru. And it doesn't belong to us. But it belongs to the Sangha, belongs to Krishna. And such an atmosphere, it's very wonderful. So thank you. You had something? Reciprocation meaning that we may do service but we don't feel reciprocation? Or? Yeah, just like that. Well, one thing is a great obstacle in devotion is the attitude of entitlement. That they owe me something. Everybody owes me something. I mean, look, man, I shaved my head. I gave up my education in the university. I joined this movement. I mean, damn well, when I go places, they should give me some prasad and they should give me something to eat. And people should give me some donation. And we have this attitude of entitlement that I can walk into any kirtan, any place. There's a nice story we heard a few years ago that Jamuna, I don't know, you know who Jamuna was? Prabhupada's disciple, very, very special, one of the great saints in our movement, truly great saints. She had come to Mayapur and they were doing kirtan with a small group of devotees every day. And she told the devotees before they began things, she said, come every day and don't be late. And this is our intimate group. And so they were doing kirtan every day. After a couple of days, one of the friends, one lady came, was friends with several of the devotees. She's an initiated devotee herself. And she showed up at the door with kind of a sweet smile. And she said, can I join in? And Jamuna said, oh, I'm sorry, there's not enough room. Somebody came in the room right now and said, do you mind, can I join in? And I said, I'm sorry, there's not enough room. How would you feel? How would everybody feel? You'd make you feel really uncomfortable, isn't it? You kind of look around and say, well, actually there is room. Why is he saying like that? And all the devotees there, they felt uncomfortable. And finally one of them said, well, we could go out on the balcony a little bit. There's room there. And then Jamuna kind of begrudgingly said, oh, okay. And so that lady joined the group. And then later on, Braj Leela, our friend Bhakti Tirthamara's disciple who was there, she went to Jamuna and she said, look, I don't understand. You have such a loving mood. This person's coming. Well, why are you saying that there's not enough room? And she told her that, she said, I could see on her face this attitude of entitlement. And she thinks she can go anywhere and just enter into the kirtan because I'm a Hare Krishna devotee. I have this right. But we have an intimate circle. We have an intimate group. And that's required. If we want to advance further in bhakti, that thing is required. So this attitude of entitlement is a great obstacle in devotion. And another point is also the nature of devotion is we should be very, very tolerant and very, very patient. Because in dealings of love, love has to be proved. Every young lady knows this. There's so many boys who run after girls and say, baby, I love you. But she wants to see. If she's a wise person, she wants to see. Prove your love. And stop, give up your other girlfriends. Come and spend time with me. Prove your love. So Krishna also, he wants to see. We're going to prove our love. My Guru Maharaj used to give the example of Suparnika. And Suparnika, the sister of Ravan, she came to Lord Ramachandra. What was her fault? She fell in love with the Lord. Is that wrong? I wish I could fall in love with the Lord. It was very good. And she had some conjugal desire for him. That's not such a bad thing. How the Krishna promises, Yeyatam prapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyam. I always reciprocate however someone approaches me. So how did Lord Ramachandra reciprocate with her? He told Lakshman, cut off her ears and her nose. That's not very nice. That's horrific. Huh? And what was the result of that? No one would touch her after that. And she suffered. My Guru Maharaj said she suffered for tens of thousands of years in Dwarpara, in Treta Yuga. But she couldn't, something happened. She couldn't stop thinking about Ramachandra. And no one would touch her. She wasn't exactly a beauty queen after that. No one would touch her. And she was always thinking of the Lord. And she suffered and suffered and suffered for tens of thousands of years. And then she took birth again in Dwarpara Yuga in a place called Mathura. And she was known as Sarindri, or Kuja. And in that birth, she got Krishna. So we should be willing to be so very, very patient and tolerant. That reciprocation may not come externally. We may not see it right away. We should be very, very tolerant and wait for that thing and have faith that Krishna will take care, Krishna will provide, and not have this poisonous attitude of entitlement, which makes us very, very bitter and very, very angry. I'm a senior devotee. I deserve this. I worked so hard. I won the marathon. I distributed more books than everybody else. I've done so much service. Therefore, I should get respect. I should get this. I should get that. And we're doing some kind of business in that way with our bhakti. It's not really unmotivated. Okay? It's a very honest, nice question. I appreciate that. Thank you. So, are there any other questions from anybody? Guruji?
I was listening to what you were saying about entitlement, and I remember the early days in Los Angeles. I was fortunate enough to.
What year did you join Los Angeles?
Oh, I met Prabhupada in '66 here, and then I went to Los Angeles in the '70s.
In 70?
Yes.
Wow. In La Cienega?
Yeah.
Wow. I joined in Los Angeles also.
Oh, did you?
Much later.
Oh. But I remember when on Watsiga Avenue, and then the temple wasn't where the temple was, and we had upstairs was a prashadam room, and by the prashadam room was the shower, and everybody had to go there to take the shower because that's all. We didn't have the whole street, we didn't have all those big buildings, so
I remember
everybody
living in that Prasad when I was up there.
Yeah, you remember there? So one day, Prabhupada used to come down here and take showers with everybody because his room wasn't fixed. The shower wasn't fixed here. So when he would come down there and get in line, of course, all the devotees would move aside for Srila Prabhupada to take a shower, And Prabhupada, I always remember, he would have his chara over his hand, and he would be like an aristocrat, standing in line, like, He didn't even belong here. He would stand in line and he would wait. He would wait for everybody else. He wouldn't cut the line. Everybody told him cut the line. But if you were there before him, he would wait.
Oh my God. So in other words, he didn't have an attitude of entitlement. He
No.
didn't say, look, I'm the guru, I'm the founder of Acharya, get the hell out of my way. Don't you know who I am? I need to use the bathroom right now.
Yeah, I just.
That's a beautiful, beautiful anecdote. Did everybody hear that okay? He was speaking a little softly. Did you hear Bing back then?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing that, Pooja. Anything else from anybody? Pooja?
So when someone chants like in great fear of like imminent like death, or where does it fall? And is that Atma Krandana, or is that material, like the basic, I'm just worried about my death right now? The reason I ask is I had a skydiving accident and it could have been fatal. And there were like 20 seconds when the chute didn't open, and
Oh my God.
my heart, like first time in a long time, I felt raw fear. Like my heart was palpitating, the whole symptoms of life flashing in front of you.
Did you remember to chant?
I did, I mean, yeah. But in the 20 seconds of everything happened, all the things. And like I thought of my parents first, and then I also started chanting. But I've chanted in great fear, but it was supposed, obviously, for that I'm gonna meet something very disastrous.
I would say there's different degrees of that. Obviously, that's something, if you're crying out, understanding that I'm in a dangerous situation, crying out for Krishna, there's some theoretical understanding, but still, it's not an innate cry of the soul coming out. I had a similar experience once. I almost drowned. Once on Thanksgiving Day, we were doing traveling Sankirtan, and we went to in Florida, and we went swimming there, and there was nobody on the beach. We couldn't figure out why there's nobody, and then we found out why, because there was a heavy riptide, and it started taking us out, and I couldn't come in. And I was trying, and I realized, oh my God, I may not make it. I'm going to die. And I began praying, but I remember thinking to myself, kind of like being an observer and looking at things and saying, I'm praying, but it's kind of mechanical, because I'm supposed to be doing this. And it's not something really innate calling out from my heart. And somehow I made it out of the water, and I waded back in, and I grabbed the hand of my friend and pulled him in. And it was quite an experience. But we may go through things like that, and intellectually we understand something. And there's value to that. That's also wanted, but we want to come to the point where it's actually deeply from our heart. We're really crying out, crying to the soul.
So, but is it?
And sometimes also that crying, as we were commenting in Hartford recently, that crying, sometimes it comes and it goes. Just like a little baby, the baby's crying for the mother, and then the mother comes and gives the baby a toy. And then the baby stops crying for a little while. And then maybe he starts crying again, and the mother comes and shakes the toy. And the baby says, yes, life is good. And then he forgets about it. The same way, we start crying, and then someone comes and gives us a new tablet. Yeah, that's pretty good. Life's good. And we forget all about our problems. We forget about crying for a while. And then our girlfriend leaves us. Sixth girlfriend in a row leaves us. And we start crying again. And then somebody comes, we get a brand new car or something, then we forget about our prayer. But we should, like the baby, the mother's bringing so many toys to the baby, and the baby stops crying every time. But at a certain point, the baby takes the toys, throws it. The hell with that. I don't want any toys. I want you. And the baby starts screaming. And the mother knows the sound of that voice. It ain't gonna work, no more toys. Baby wants me now. So that's Atma Krandana. We cry a little bit sometimes, and then we get a new toy, and we forget our crying. But it has to be a very, very deep thing. Okay? Anything else?
I have a sort of similar question.
Uh-huh. Speak loud, it's a little hard for me to hear.
It's hard, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
So when sometimes we do things that we're not supposed to do, and we understand we're doing this, and we fight for Krishna.
We're doing some things we're not supposed to do.
Yeah, we understand we're doing something wrong.
Uh-huh.
And this uneasy feeling, it brings the, for example, we start chanting. Is it a hypocrisy?
We stop chanting, you're saying.
We start chanting, even though we still kind of, I can't bring an example, but the kids, for example, kids are lying, right? And the kid knows that he's lying, he kind of starts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I understand.
And he's still lying, even though he knows that he shouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, he asks Krishna for help, but he does not stop lying. So is it a hypocrisy?
Yeah, that's very good. I like this comment very much. She's being very. In his book, Bhajan Rahasya, where he speaks about very confidential chanting, he says, what is the qualification to chant? Does anybody know what is the qualification? And he quotes 2 verses from the Bhagavatam, which I think address very nicely the point you're making. Krishna tells Uddhava, Jatashadama katasu nirvina sarva karmasu vedadukatmakam kaman parityage panishvara. He says sometimes there's someone who's Jatashadama katasu. They have some faith in Krishna kata, they have some faith in chanting. Nirvina sarva karmasu, they know I shouldn't do bad things. Vedadukatmakam kaman. If I engage in sense gratification, I'm going to suffer. They know that. But parityage panishvara, they can't give it up. Even though they have some faith in Krishna kata, some faith in Krishna, in chanting and things, and they know that these bad things, doing these sinful kind of things is going to bring suffering to me, still they can't stop it. Huh? What should they do? Krishna says, Tato bhajeta mam prita, Shradhalur Judanishchaya, Jusamanas Chatan Kaman Dukudarkams Chagarhayan. He said they should continue worshiping me. Don't stop. And try to do it with as much affection as you can. And do it with faith in the Lord, in conviction, Judanishchaya. And all the while lamenting in your heart that, why can't I just be honest? Why did I have to tell a lie like that? Why did I have to do this thing, this nasty thing? Dukodar comes to Garhayan. Garhayan indicates Agni, indicates some fire of lamentation in the heart. And that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is our qualification for chanting. Isn't that wonderful? So indirectly, so in the words of my Guru Maharaj, he used to say that your only qualification is your disqualification. To put it another way, our only qualification is our honesty. And this is Bishad Yoga, to accept that poison and be honest about it. Don't make pretenses. We make pretenses, we try to fool everybody. We might fool everybody around us. You might even manage to fool your friends. You might even manage to fool your parents or your husband or your kids, but you can't fool Krishna. Krishna knows, and he's not impressed if we're just putting on a show. And we're not going to get very much from that show. We have to be honest and come out. Just like Haridas Thakur, he's the Acharya of the holy name. And he told Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there in Puri, in a place known as Siddha Bakul, Amito Adama Tumi Adama Tarana Ubaye Sambande Patita Pavana Bolo Hare Krishna. He didn't try to tell him, look, I have a degree from Harvard University. He didn't try to tell him that, I'm the Namacharya. I went through a lot of troubles, that they tried to torture me and things, but I didn't stop chanting. I'm a tough guy. He said, Amita Adama, I'm fallen. That's who I am. And I know who you are. To me, Adama Tarana, you're the deliverer of the fallen. Ubayor Sambandai, this is our connection. This is a connection that I have with the Lord. If I accept my position as being fallen, and that the Lord is a deliverer of the fallen. But if I try to present myself as a great personality, I've been traveling, giving lectures, and everybody clapped their hands in Boston after I gave that class. I'm a pretty special person, you know. You better be impressed, Krishna. Krishna's not impressed by that. How am I making, but if I'm honest and I'm crying, okay? Thank you. I like that very much. Anything else is there?
Just looking at the theme of entitlement, even at the political level,
Uh-huh.
this concept of egalitarianism would not work also because the script for our lives are already sort of written out that this some screenwriter and this is so it has to play out that way. So it seems like it would be an existential anomaly if we all had the same thing, we were all billionaires or Mount Zuckerberg, whatever the case may be. So and one of the laws of macroeconomics is scarcity, so we all can't have the same thing. So, I mean, I'm just thinking that I know.
That's nice. Thank you.
Entitlement, what is it? Because, you know, I would think that poverty is kind of a function of simple activities, and in converse with that, it's true too that prosperity might be a function of purity, even on a kind of level.
Yeah, maturity means to accept that I did something wrong. Right? Yeah, a child doesn't want to accept that they did something wrong, and they won't take the blame for it. But when that child becomes mature, then he'll agree, yes, I did something. Yes, Uncle? Okay. I thought that Radha Gopi Vallabha had a message they sent you or something. No? Okay. Bhima Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu?
On that point there, as devotees, I feel like if something should happen to us, if we should go from, let's say, what counts in America, an economically secure state to, facing poverty state, that's actually a blessing. If you really look into Scripture, if you really look into what every saint has ever faced,
Jai. Yeah.
Things are good if you pet the toy. Everything in life is good. And that's why I feared Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, because I thought everything that I worked so hard for, Krishna was going to take. The one thing that we can always remember is that despite the fact that he does, either by kala time or just by his sweetness and his Hebrew, his character, Krishna is also our ever well-wisher, our best friend. So whatever he does is always for our own good.
Thank you. It's a very amazing thing, isn't it, though, that even though we theoretically can understand that sometimes, we can't practically live it. In Kunti Devi's prayers, she prays, yes, thank you. Krishna Kun helps me so much. Vipada santutasya svat tattva tattva jagadguru. Bhavato darshanam yasharapunar bhava darshanam. She says, let me have it. Give me the problems. I like those problems. Give them to me again and again and again and over again, because whenever I suffer like that, then I remember you. And therefore that suffering is a very good thing. My Guru Maharaj commented on that once, so he said, you can't pray like that. It's a theoretical thing. But at the same time, we should learn that verse. We should learn that principle. And we should at least have some intellectual understanding of it. And then we're on our way. Because otherwise, we see so many times, even with the people who have been devotees for many, many years, when something bad happens, we can't understand, we can't accept it. Even though we know, Shastra says, this is your karma, you did some bad thing in your past life, we should accept it. It's very, very hard. So at least we should go down the path of intellectually understanding it and of trying to imbibe it. And when we do that exercise, it's an amazing thing. When we do that exercise, when in spite of difficult situations, when bad things happen, we take shelter of the Lord and we humbly try to see how it's my fault, something happens. I've seen this with devotees. I've experienced it myself. Something happens in your heart and your attitude begins to change. Would you have something?
Just both of the songs that you sang.
Uh-huh.
He was just making me just think about how the pure devotees see themselves in that light, but also that they have the ability to have the highest realizations of their connection with Radha Krishna, simultaneously to fully understand the condition of the living entity, of the conditioned soul. Not that we see them as conditioned, even though they are speaking like that, but they have that power. I mean, it's very difficult, speak for myself, to, even though I know I'm fallen, to really feel, one, my fallen condition, and also the fact that I'm, you know.
Sanatana Goswami says an interesting thing like that in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He says that humility brings on love. Okay. Humility brings on love, and love brings humility. The two are like in cause and effect. When someone has divine love, they naturally become humble. And if someone has genuine humility, it's a very great help in the development of love. Very important thing. These songs are very special songs. We can sing them. Mo samo patita prabhu nahi tribhuvani. There's nobody as fallen as I am in all the three worlds. It's very poetic, isn't it? But then I go out in the street, as we were saying the other day, I see a bag lady eating a half-eaten hamburger out of the garbage can. What do I think? Ugh, she's really much lower than me. We think like that. We haven't really imbibed this deeply. It's just coming from the lips. And so how do we imbibe that? Sanatana Goswami says in one place, he says, it's not that we have to cultivate humility. We cultivate chanting the holy names. It's not that the holy name is dependent on humility. The holy name will work with or without humility. But, just like when I was a young boy, we grew up in a farm in a remote part of Illinois. And the place, our house we moved into one time, had no electricity, had no running water. And we used to go out and we had a pump well. And we found out to get water, you could stand there and pump 24 hours a day and you wouldn't get one drop out of the well. You had to prime the well. I don't know if you know that expression. We pour a little bit of water into the well, and when you pour a little bit of water in, then it makes the cup go down, and it fills up with water, and you get water out of it. So similarly, we prime our bhakti in this sense. We act in a humble way. Maybe I'm not really humble, but I'm giving respect because I know I should. And then by giving that respect, I'll get blessings from the senior devotees. And it's like priming the well, then that humility will become real. Okay, Bhima, you had something? Am I in trouble or anything? I'm in trouble, okay? Krishna Kuman, you had some comment? Okay, so I think now, Prabhuji, Banamali Prabhu? You want to take the microphone and say this? Okay. Grandana Shrimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.